the tiny alien girl, didn't know. Humans loved like that. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, casting the sprawling city in soft shades of pink and purple. Mia adjusted the strap of her backpack, already feeling the familiar pulse of nerves, mixed with excitement. She wasn't exactly sure what to expect in this new world she had just landed in. Earth. After all, she was only 3 inches tall. Mia was an alien from the distant planet of Zephyrah, a tiny being in a world of giants. Her race, the Zephyrians, were diminutive, but gifted with sharp intellect and incredible agility. Yet Earth was a completely different ballgame. The towering humans were baffling to her, especially their unpredictable behavior. Her mission was simple: observe humans, learn their customs, and report back to her home planet. The Zephyrian Council had chosen her specifically for her keen observation skills and adaptability. But within the first few hours of her arrival, she learned something she hadn't prepared for. Humans had mating rituals, and they were very hands-on. Mia crouched behind a fallen leaf in the park, watching a group of humans with fascination. One of them, a tall man with messy brown hair and glasses, was talking animatedly with a woman. He looked kind but peculiar, in the way all humans seemed to. The way humans interacted fascinated Mia, but one behavior perplexed her the most: the sudden physical closeness and the strange warm glances they shared. She pulled out her tiny observation pad, scribbling notes about their gestures and expressions. The woman laughed at something the man said, and he moved closer, their faces nearly touching. Mia's antennae twitched with curiosity. On Zephyrah, such proximity would only occur during the most sacred of bonding ceremonies. Suddenly, Mia felt a shadow fall over her. She looked up and froze. A pair of kind brown eyes behind glasses stared down at her with wonder. Whoa. What's this? A tiny person? The man's voice was deep but gentle, filled with amazement rather than threat. Mia's heart pounded in her tiny chest. She tried to run, but he was surprisingly quick for such a large being. Before she could vanish into the grass, his giant hand scooped her up with remarkable gentleness. Hey there, little one. You're so tiny. Where did you come from? He asked with genuine curiosity, holding her carefully in his palm as if she were made of the most delicate crystal. Mia blinked, trying to figure out what to say. She was terrified but also strangely curious about this gentle giant. Her training had prepared her for observation, not direct contact. I'm Mia, she squeaked, her voice barely audible. From Zephyrah. Zephyrah? Never heard of it, he said with a chuckle that rumbled through his chest. I'm Jake. Nice to meet you, Mia. Jake didn't seem dangerous at all. In fact, his demeanor was so kind and patient that Mia found herself relaxing despite the overwhelming size difference. His touch was gentle and his voice carried a warmth that reminded her of the sun crystals back home. You must be cold out here, Jake said, noticing her tiny form shivering slightly in the evening breeze. Would you like to come to my place? I promise I won't hurt you. Mia hesitated. Protocol dictated that she should remain hidden, observing from a distance. But something about Jake's sincere eyes made her nod slowly. Perhaps this was an opportunity to study human behavior up close. For scientific purposes, of course. Jake took her to his apartment, which to Mia looked like a colossal mansion. Every piece of furniture loomed like monuments around her. She explored cautiously, marveling at the huge tables, massive chairs, and endless shelves filled with strange objects. Books towered like skyscrapers, and a coffee mug could have served as a swimming pool. As they chatted, Jake proved to be an excellent host, even fashioning a tiny chair from a matchbox and setting out a bottle cap filled with water for her. He asked thoughtful questions about her world, genuinely interested in learning about Zephyrian culture. So what brings a tiny alien to Earth? Jake asked, settling into his armchair while Mia perched on the coffee table. Research, Mia replied, feeling more comfortable. I'm studying human social behaviors and customs. Jake's eyes lit up with interest. Well, you've come to the right species. We're pretty social creatures. He paused, then added with a slightly embarrassed smile. You know, Mia, sometimes humans show they like each other by, well, mating. It's a bit weird, but also kind of sweet. Mia froze, her antennae twitching nervously. Mating? The word carried such different connotations on Zephyra. What did that mean exactly? She tried to smile nervously. That sounds complicated. Jake grinned, seemingly amused by her reaction. It is, but it's natural for us. It's how we express deep affection and connection. Before she could process what was happening, Jake leaned down and unexpectedly tried to hold her gently between his lips, mimicking what humans called a kiss. The gesture was meant to be tender, but to Mia, being approached by something so enormous was terrifying. Mia panicked and darted away, her agility serving her well as she climbed up his sleeve with remarkable speed. No, no, please don't, she squealed, her voice high with fear. Jake immediately pulled back, his face showing confusion mixed with concern. Oh God, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. But the damage was done. Mia's mind was racing with alarm and confusion. From her tiny vantage point on Jake's shoulder, Mia saw Jake's confused but genuinely remorseful face. His eyes were wide with concern, and she could see that he truly hadn't meant to frighten her. Okay, I get it, he said softly, lowering his hands in a gesture of surrender. I'm really sorry, Mia. I didn't realize that would scare you. But Mia's mind was racing with terror and confusion. This huge human had just tried to mate with her. On Zephyra, mating was a very private, sacred ritual that took place only after extensive courtship and mutual consent. It was never rushed or forced, and certainly never attempted between strangers. Here, things felt chaotic, awkward, and more than a little scary. The cultural shock was overwhelming. Everything she thought she understood about human behavior suddenly seemed alien and threatening. Was this how all humans behaved? Did they attempt to mate with any creature they encountered? Mia decided she needed to escape before things got even more confusing or dangerous. Her survival instincts kicked in, overriding her scientific curiosity. She had to get away and reassess the situation from a safe distance. Using her natural agility, she slipped down Jake's arm like a tiny acrobat, moving so quickly that he barely had time to react. She dashed toward the door, but the apartment, that had seemed fascinating moments before, now felt like a maze of giant obstacles. Wait, Mia, please, Jake called after her, his voice filled with genuine distress. I'm not trying to scare you. But Mia was already through the crack under the door, racing into the vastness of the city streets. The concrete jungle that stretched before her was both liberating and terrifying. Every step could be her last if she wasn't careful. But at least she was free from the confusing giant who had tried to perform strange mating rituals on her. The city at night was a different beast entirely. Streetlights cast long shadows that provided perfect hiding spots for someone her size, but they also created dark corners where danger could lurk. She zigzagged through cracks in the pavement, leaped onto fallen leaves that served as natural platforms, and used every ounce of her Zephyrian agility to navigate this urban wilderness. Behind her, she could hear Jake's voice calling her name, but she didn't dare look back. The sound of his footsteps, each one like thunder to her tiny ears, drove her forward with renewed urgency. As she ran, her mind struggled to process what had just happened. Had she misunderstood human customs? Was Jake's behavior normal, or was he particularly aggressive? Her training hadn't prepared her for such direct physical contact, especially of such an intimate nature. Running in a world where everything was gigantic proved to be both terrifying and exhilarating for Mia. Her Zephyrian heritage served her well. She was incredibly fast and agile, able to navigate obstacles that would be impossible for a human to follow. She zigzagged through cracks in the pavement, leaped from leaf to leaf, and used every shadow as cover. Jake, worried and remorseful, followed her carefully, his heavy footsteps echoing in the quiet street. He was clearly trying not to frighten her further, calling out gentle reassurances as he tracked her movement. Mia, please, I'm not trying to scare you, he called, his voice carrying genuine concern. I just want to talk. Finally, Mia stopped at the edge of a small garden, her tiny chest heaving as she caught her breath. She turned to face her pursuer, no longer running, but ready to flee at the first sign of danger. Jake approached slowly, then knelt down to bring himself closer to her level, though he was still monumentally large compared to her. His expression was filled with regret and sincerity. "Why are you doing this?" Mia asked, her voice trembling but determined. "Why are humans so touchy?" Jake's face softened with understanding. He seemed to realize that what he considered a gentle gesture had been perceived as something entirely different by this tiny being from another world. Because sometimes, when we like someone, we show it physically, Jake explained gently. "But I promise, Mia, it's never meant to scare or hurt anyone. It's supposed to be a way of showing care and affection." Mia studied his face, searching for deception but finding only sincerity. Her antennae, which had been rigid with fear, began to relax slightly. "I'm just scared," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know your ways. On Zephyra, such things are different, more sacred, more private." Jake's eyes widened, with understanding and remorse. "I'm so sorry, Mia. I had no idea. Your culture, your customs. I should have asked first. I should have been more respectful." The genuine regret in his voice touched something in Mia's heart. She could see that his intentions had been kind, even if his execution had been terrifying. From her perspective, "Then teach me yours," Jake said earnestly. "I want to understand you better. I want to know about Zephyra and how your people show care for each other." For the first time since their encounter began, Mia felt a spark of hope. Here was a human, a giant, strange, overwhelming human, who was willing to learn about her world instead of forcing his customs upon her. You really want to know?" she asked hesitantly. "More than anything," Jake replied, and the sincerity in his voice convinced her that perhaps not all humans were the same. Perhaps this one could be trusted. Over the next few days, something magical began to bloom between the tiny alien and the gentle human. Mia and Jake spent hours together, each day bringing new understanding and deeper connection. Mia showed him how Zephyrians communicated, through subtle antenna twitches that conveyed complex emotions, bioluminescent light patterns that danced across their skin during moments of joy, and gentle touches that spoke of trust and affection. Jake listened with rapt attention, even attempting to mimic some of the simpler gestures, which made Mia laugh with delight. In turn, Jake taught Mia about human customs with infinite patience. He explained how hugs were expressions of comfort, how holding hands showed companionship, and how kisses were gentle expressions of love, not the aggressive mating rituals she had initially feared. He demonstrated each gesture slowly, always, asking permission first, always respecting her boundaries. Mia began to see that while different, humans could be incredibly kind and respectful. Jake proved this every day through his actions, creating tiny furniture for her comfort, preparing minuscule portions of food, and always speaking to her as an equal despite their vast size difference. One evening, under the glow of warm street lights, Mia found herself perched comfortably on Jake's shoulder. The fear that had once gripped her heart had transformed into something entirely different: trust, affection, and something deeper she was only beginning to understand. "You're amazing, Mia," Jake said softly, his voice carrying a tenderness that made her tiny heart flutter. "I never thought I'd meet someone like you. You've changed how I see the world." Mia felt warmth spread through her tiny body, a sensation that had nothing to do with the ambient temperature and everything to do with the emotions blooming in her chest. For the first time since arriving on Earth, she felt truly safe and valued. Then came the moment that shocked Mia even more than Jake's first awkward attempt at showing affection. Jake, with a serious but hopeful expression, pulled out a tiny ring, clearly handcrafted with meticulous care to fit her diminutive finger. "Mia," he said, his voice slightly trembling with nervousness, "I know this is sudden, and I know we're from different worlds, literally. But will you marry me?" Mia blinked in astonishment. Marriage was a concept that existed on Zephyra, but she had only just started understanding human customs. Yet looking into Jake's kind eyes, she felt something she had never experienced before: complete trust, overwhelming affection, and a hope for a future she had never imagined possible. The ring glittered in the streetlight, tiny but perfect, a symbol of Jake's commitment to bridging their worlds. Slowly, her heart full of wonder and love, she nodded. "Yes," she whispered, the word carrying the weight of her entire heart. Their wedding was a beautiful blend of Zephyrian and human traditions. Mia wore a shimmering gown woven from silk threads and glowing crystals that pulsed with her heartbeat, while Jake wore a simple but elegant suit. Friends from both worlds attended, curious humans who marveled at the tiny bride, and other Zephyrians, who had traveled across the galaxy to witness this unprecedented union. When Jake slipped the tiny ring onto Mia's finger, a soft, warm glow enveloped them both, a sign of their bond bridging two vastly different worlds. Together, they proved that love wasn't about size or species, but about trust, respect, and the willingness to understand and cherish each other's differences. In their love, two worlds became one. The months following their wedding brought both joy and unexpected challenges for the newlyweds. Living together required constant adaptation and creativity. Jake had transformed a corner of his apartment into a miniature world for Mia, complete with tiny furniture, a dollhouse-sized kitchen, and even a microscopic garden where she could grow Zephyrian herbs from seeds she had brought from home. Mia's favorite spot was the windowsill observatory Jake had built for her, equipped with a telescope sized perfectly for her tiny hands. From there, she could study the stars and maintain contact with her home planet through quantum communication devices that looked like glittering dewdrops to human eyes. Their daily routines became a beautiful dance of accommodation and affection. Jake would wake early to prepare breakfast, a few drops of honey and microscopic fruit portions for Mia, regular human food for himself. They would eat together, Mia perched on a tiny chair beside his plate, sharing stories about their respective worlds. The challenges were real but surmountable. Simple tasks like watching movies required Jake to create a tiny theater setup with a magnifying screen. Going out together meant Mia riding an especially designed pendant around Jake's neck, with tiny air holes and a clear crystal window so she could see the world while staying safe. But the most significant challenge came from the outside world. Not everyone was as accepting as Jake's close friends. Some people stared, whispered, or worse, questioned the validity of their relationship. A few humans saw Mia as more of a pet than a partner, which both infuriated and hurt Jake deeply. "How? Can you marry something so small?" one of Jake's co-workers had asked insensitively. "It's not natural." Jake's response was swift and firm. "Love doesn't measure itself in inches. Mia is the most intelligent, brave, and wonderful person I've ever met. If you can't see that, then you're the one missing something." These moments brought them closer, together. Mia witnessed Jake's fierce protectiveness and unwavering support, while Jake saw Mia's grace and dignity in the face of ignorance. They learned to lean on each other, their bond strengthening with each challenge they faced. One evening, as they watched the sunset from their balcony, Jake in his chair, Mia on her tiny platform beside him, she reached out and touched his finger with both her tiny hands. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "Falling in love with someone so different?" Jake's answer came without hesitation. "Never. You've made my world bigger than I ever imagined possible. You've taught me that love isn't about what we can see, but what we can feel and share." Mia's bioluminescent patterns glowed softly, a sign of deep contentment and love that Jake had learned to recognize and cherish. 2 years had passed since that fateful day in the park, and Jake and Mia had built a life that seemed impossible to outsiders, but felt perfectly natural to them. Their love had not only survived but flourished, creating ripples that extended far beyond their tiny apartment. Mia had become something of a celebrity in both the scientific community and among those who believed in the power of love to transcend all boundaries. Her detailed reports about human society, sent back to Zephyra, had opened diplomatic channels between Earth and her home planet. She had become an unofficial ambassador, bridging two worlds through her unique perspective and experiences. Jake, inspired by his wife's courage and wisdom, had changed careers. He now worked as a cultural anthropologist, specializing in interspecies communication and accommodation. Together, they had written a book about their experiences, which became a bestseller and changed many people's perspectives about what constitutes a valid relationship. But their greatest joy came from a discovery that shocked even the most advanced scientists on both planets. Mia was pregnant. The pregnancy was unprecedented, a miracle of biology that defied explanation. The baby, according to Zephyrian Medical, scans would be unique, larger than a typical Zephyrian but smaller than a human with characteristics from both species. The child would be the first of its kind, a living bridge between two worlds. "Are you scared?" Jake asked one evening, his finger gently stroking Mia's tiny back as she rested against his palm. "Terrified," Mia admitted with a laugh. "But also excited. Our child will never have to choose between worlds, they'll belong to both." The birth was attended by doctors from both species, a medical event broadcast across the galaxy. When their daughter was born, 6 inches tall with Jake's brown eyes and Mia's delicate features, the universe seemed to hold its breath. They named her Luna, for she was born under a full moon that shone equally on both Earth and Zephyra. As Jake held his tiny family in his gentle hands, watching Luna's first movements and hearing her soft cries, he marveled at the journey that had brought them here. From that first panicked encounter in the park to this moment of pure joy, their love had created something entirely new and beautiful. "She's perfect," Mia whispered, her voice filled with wonder as she cradled their daughter. "Just like her, Mother?" Jake replied, his voice thick with emotion. Outside their window, the stars twinkled with unusual brightness, as if the universe itself was celebrating this impossible love story. On Zephyra, celebrations were beginning as news of the birth spread. On Earth, scientists and romantics alike marveled at what love could accomplish when it refused to be limited by size, species, or skepticism. Mia and Jake had proven that love truly knows no boundaries. Their story became legend on both worlds, a tale of courage, understanding, and the beautiful chaos that occurs when two hearts refuse to let differences divide them. In the end, they had done more than fall in love. They had created a new kind of family, opened doorways between worlds, and shown the universe that the most powerful force in existence isn't gravity or nuclear fusion. It's love, in all its wonderful, impossible, magnificent forms. Their story continued, written not just in books or scientific journals, but in the stars themselves, where love stories that span galaxies are remembered forever.